Welcome to the first episode of Snippets at Industry Expansion Solutions at NC State University. My name is Michael Mullins, and I'm the Director of Defense Industry Initiatives at IES. And today we're very fortunate to have Leressa with us, Evaluation and Talent Development Specialist for Industry Expansion Solutions, who will be giving us an overview of recently published the Advanced Functional Fabrics of America, or AFOA, Workforce Development Report. The report is titled Reshoring a Talent Ecosystem in North Carolina's Textile Industry, Establishing a Model for Workforce Development. Leressa, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you having me here today. I'm really just going to give a quick overview of the report, keeping in mind that this report is actually 100 pages, 100 plus pages. And so I really just want to give you an overview of the structure of the report and pretty much the high-level findings of what we found throughout this project. So as you mentioned, the title is Reshoring a Talent Ecosystem in North Carolina's Textile Industry, Establishing a Model for Workforce Development. And really, Michael, the purpose of the report was really to develop a sustainable and replicable partnership model to really impact the textile workforce and to propel textiles in North Carolina moving forward. And so here I've provided a link to the table of contents just so your audience can really see kind of what was really the baseline for building the report. So we started out with the introduction and summary of key findings, and I'll go through just parts and pieces of this, and then you'll see the structure of the report. And then the appendix is really the largest piece of that, Michael. There's probably about 40 pages to the appendix, which really, if people can't sleep well at night and they just want to take a deep dive into all the data, right, and understand kind of how we captured all of these findings, they'll have access to that as well. And you'll notice here on the far right, I have linked the QR code to the complete PDF of the report. So hopefully this will really pique your interest and get your audience interested in understanding more about the textile workforce. And so hopefully they'll be interested in wanting to read more about this report. Also, if they want to contact me, my email address is there in the bottom right-hand corner if they have additional questions or would like to learn more about this work moving forward. The project objectives really were to look at the current state of the North Carolina textile industry. And so what we did was a supply and demand gap analysis within 12 counties, and I'll show you those on the next page, within North Carolina. So we did a gap analysis. Then objective 2 was to really think about how we can improve and build a diverse talent pipeline for textile manufacturing, but also looking at some of the emerging technologies that exist in textiles to really see how North Carolina can continue to be innovative in this space. As part of this objective, our partners built out a textile education pathway model so that those who may be interested in going in the field can kind of see what their trajectory could look like. And then we also created a textile career roadmap and provided an example of kind of what it would look like to kind of progress through textiles specifically in one specific role. And then ultimately, objective 3 was really to just think about how we can move this work forward, right? So thinking about a sustainable and replicable talent plan that we can continue to think about how we can attract and retain diverse talent in textiles. And so as part of that, we established a statewide task force across North Carolina to help us to begin to think about how to develop and implement this work. We created a logic model, and this really is just a visual display of really the components that were a part of putting this program together. And so the inputs, you'll see the partners and stakeholders and all who were involved, quickly the activities, all the different actions that we had, really just a quick snapshot of that. The outputs, you'll see that we did have meeting minutes, action plan matrix, and a final report, and then the outcomes of this report, again, building that replicable talent development plan or program moving forward. Again, I mentioned defining the region, and I mentioned that there were 12 counties, and you see them highlighted here. So we looked at these counties in the western part of the state to really understand more about textiles. So that was really the focus. In the beginning, we started out doing data collection. We really wanted to look at the current state of the labor market for textiles within North Carolina. And so we looked at 5 NAICS codes according to different textile industries within North Carolina, but also compared those to the United States. And what we found was we looked at the employment by occupation, We looked at the wage consistency within North Carolina. We compared and contrasted the wages of North Carolina textile workers along with those wages within the United States. And then we extracted from that the top 3 textile occupations and wages. And then finally, we looked at that as a whole to determine, what type of growth was occurring in North Carolina in terms of these critical operations. So for example, what types of occupations were potentially going to be phased out, thinking about, Industry 4.0 and new innovations, and what new roles may exist in textile manufacturing moving forward. So there are lots of graphs and charts, and you can see I have those pulled out here. But again, you can see the page numbers in the appendix that references this group if anyone is interested in learning more about the specific labor market. Moving forward, we did a gap analysis, as I mentioned. So we looked at surveys and interviews. So we conducted 2 surveys, one with the employers to find out more about their workforce challenges, including wages, recruitment, training. But then we also wanted to survey students and find out really more about their perceptions of textiles. So for example, asking questions around, why did they enter the textile market? As you know, Michael, manufacturing really does have a reputation of being kind of a dirty, dangerous job. And, some of the students today may not know a lot of different careers that they may enter into, but we found as part of this research that a lot of the students, maybe their grandmother, used to sew, or maybe they learned about, fashion, or they used to watch TV shows. And so we really wanted to understand why students were entering this field. And so again, we did those surveys. And then we did a follow-up to the survey with the employers to conduct one-on-one interviews. And so we found out there that currently, some of the key issues and concerns are there's a lack of diversity recruiting right now in the textile industry. We know that there's a huge talent shortage, but we also want to help employers figure out how they can really conduct that outreach to underrepresented minority groups, but also special populations like women and veterans. We know that we learn more about the top entry-level skills and those skills that employers are looking for those who may be interested in advancing in textiles. We learned about the perspectives on training. So for example, what does the onboarding process look like if you want to go into textiles? How long is that training process? Most of them said it was, at least 90 days. Some had up to 1 year kind of training to get involved in textiles. And then we also talked with them about their future production needs. So for example, thinking about smart textiles and what types of new equipment they may be using, and what type of equipment they think may be on the horizon for them, and maybe some challenges and budget constraints that they might see exist. And again, the page numbers and appendices there to learn more about the data collection. We also held 2 convenings where we highlighted 3 different types of case studies. One of the convenings was about workforce, and the other was specifically around technology and innovation. And so when we looked at technology and innovation, we really highlighted 2 companies. One was called Unify and one's called Parkdale. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with them at all, Michael, but they're doing a lot of new and innovative work around using recycled water bottles to build different fabrics, and they're using robotics, and they're doing a lot to build their own workforce. Whenever they couldn't find specific applicants, they went out and they found other areas and other industries that really were similar to manufacturing, and kind of brought them under their umbrella and really started to train them to think more about advanced manufacturing. So when they didn't have the workforce, they built it, so that was really interesting to hear about that. And then as far as the workforce perspective, we also learned about a grade A, best practice for apprenticeships in Gaston College called Apprenticeship 321. And so we had an opportunity to learn about those key programs. We had some listening sessions with the companies. They shared their challenges and workforce development examples that were really worked best for them. And out of those sessions and case studies really came some recommendations and best practices for how companies can build the workforce that they need, how they can accelerate development with the use of technology. We talked a lot about generational workforce differences and how they can continue to kind of allow that collaborative culture to really work for them. We talked about the importance of competitive wages, again, apprenticeships, and the benefits of veteran hiring. So you'll see that laid out as well in the report. Then, as I mentioned, we did textile pathways and roadmaps. So you'll see here examples of the pathways that exist within North Carolina from both, you can't see it here at the very bottom, but thinking about two-year programs, apprenticeship programs, and also advanced degrees. And then when you look at this textile education pathway, really thinking about how the education around textiles really begins at that K-12 outreach and public non-credit training, apprenticeship programs. There's customized trainings, and then associate, bachelor's, master's, and PhD programs. Here's the example, Michael, of the roadmap that I shared with you around just a specific role as an equipment machine operator. You can kind of follow this and see really how someone may be able to kind of jump on and off these different off ramps to kind of really work towards advancement in this specific industry. And so we wanted to provide an example of that. So if anyone is interested, they can kind of understand how to navigate this space, and also recognize that, as we all know, there's not one way to really, progress in your career. There's many opportunities, both short and long term, and thinking about how to be educated, in this space. And so we also highlighted some upcoming digital badging that's taking place. Our partners have formed a customized collaborative where they're offering digital badging online. Currently, they're offering 41 new credentials. And then we also highlighted in the appendix some additional textile courses that are being offered in North Carolina. Within our partnership model, as I mentioned, we had an advisory board and a task force that met quarterly to really hear our ideas, provide feedback on the surveys that we developed, and really share best practices that they were seeing in the field. We also, as a part of awareness for the program, developed a new website. Again, that co-branding course offerings that I mentioned. And then we participated in multiple conferences and presentations to really share the best practices that we were learning along the way. And so here you see the co-branding here with Textiles NC and a variety of our other partners, and you'll see links to our website. And again, you can learn more about that in the report here on these pages below. And then finally, we pulled together a key set of recommendations. We pulled those together at a glance early on in the report on page 15. So if you don't have a lot of time and you just want to kind of see that at a glance, you can check out that page. And then on pages 68 through 77, we really provided a stakeholder-wide view of recommendations from both the public outreach, because we believe it's really important that the public understands the reputation of manufacturing and textiles in this space. Also, starting early on in K-12, we provided a list of recommendations for K-12 partners and also employers. And then we looked at textile messaging and expanding the programming, that how we were outreaching to partners, and really just the increase in hiring strategies and how we can promote textile awareness. And then finally, with workforce and technology, thinking about DEI related trainings for both the employers, but also providing outreach to those special populations, and thinking about how we can partner with workforce development agencies. We found that a lot of the companies weren't using those resources. And so really just building that awareness around the companies understanding what they can do to really learn more about how they can be more productive. And then trainings, onboarding for leadership, and then influences by policy development and funding streams. So helping companies apply for grants so that they can continue to be innovative, and then helping them understand production and commercial, how we can better help them related to production and commercialization. And so those were just a few of our key recommendations that we found. Again, provided another link to the report and the QR code right there. But really, thank you for taking an opportunity to speak with me about the report. Again, it's 100+ pages, but I hope this gave you a quick overview and snapshot of kind of what we learned so far. Do you have any questions for me, or if there's anything else I can expand upon that you think your audience might be interested in?
Well, first, thank you very much, Leressa, for joining me today. That was fantastic. Now that the project's done, how do you see the work moving forward from this point?
Sure, thank you. That's a great question. So really, this was just a jumping off point for really understanding, the current state of North Carolina. And so we really are continuing to meet with those stakeholder groups. We're going to continue to meet to figure out how we can better share this information more broadly. So as a matter of fact, we have lots of presentations coming up where we'll be sharing really our findings. And so that's the first step. but also, again, we'll be continuing to collaborate, continuing to look at funding where we can potentially continue to build more programs and expand and implement some of these recommendations that we put forward. And one thing I do want to share is that this project was funded by NextFlex, one of the manufacturing institutes, and we had several partners, and apologies that I didn't pull that slide with all the different partners, but there were lots of us who participated, and you can see that in the report. And so we'll continue to collaborate with our partners to continue to get this message out and continue to probably hold more convenings to speak with the employers to really understand, where their needs are, and so we can better understand how we can support them.
All right. Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Leressa. And I would encourage everyone to take the time to examine the full report. And if you have any questions for Leressa or myself, the contact information will be on the last slide, and please feel free to reach out to us. And thanks for joining us today. Leressa, thank you.
Thank you, Michael.